Okay. All right, again, welcome to the virtual open house for the Communication Department graduate programs, which is the Civic Media MA and the Strategic Communication MA. As I just said, for in our agenda, we just did some introductions. I'm also going to just do a brief introduction for Columbia, and then we'll move into more information about the programs. I'll talk about admissions a little bit, and then we'll have a conversation about current student and recent alumni experience and go into a more casual conversation. As we discussed earlier, the presenters today are myself, Kelly Schmader, Yanti Friesman, who is the graduate programs director for communication and also sort of like lead faculty for the Civic Media MA. Peg Murphy, the associate chair and an associate professor in communication, who also was lead in the development of the strategic communication masters. And then Shelby Hawkins is our current student, and Serene will be joining us shortly, and she's a recent alum. So about Columbia College Chicago, if you are still getting to know the school, we just wanted to give you a few top sort of facts. Columbia's mission is to educate students who will communicate creatively and shape the public's perceptions of issues and events and who will author the culture of their times. We like to include this because it's our top line mission statement, and we think it really reflects the nature of the school and how we are, responding to always the zeitgeist in the current moment. About half of our population identifies as a person of color, so Columbia students reflect kind of like contemporary America, the diversity of our country, and we think this really contributes a lot to the value of the educational experience and for innovation and creativity. We're located in the heart of Chicago's Cultural Mile, meaning we're a short walk from like the Art Institute and some other cultural institutions. I'll show you a bit more about that on the next slide. But about 7,000 students attend Columbia. The majority are undergraduate students, but so you can see here the School of Graduate Studies is pretty small in comparison, but that's because our programs are designed for small cohort sizes. The students can receive ample attention from faculty. Just briefly, because in an ideal world, we'd be able to welcome you to campus for an open house and give you a tour. This is just some orienting stuff about where Columbia is in relation to Chicago. This is the Buckingham Fountain, which is like a major landmark when you're driving up Lakeshore Drive, just kind of one of the entry points of the city. Back here is the Sears Tower, or the Willis Tower as it's now known, one of our tallest buildings, and so Columbia is kind of off here to the left. But this is our campus map, so there's the fountain, and the communication building is on Ida B. Wells Drive up here on the north side of the campus. And the biggest thing to point out here, I think, for everyone, just in terms of if you have to relocate to Chicago and you want to know more about getting around the city, we have a pretty comprehensive transit system, and all these purple dots here are various train stations that are basically located right on campus. So it's a pretty centrally located place. It's easy to get to from a lot of different neighborhoods. And with that, I will turn it over to Yanti to talk about civic media.
I don't know why I cannot find my microphone today. So, hi everybody, great to see you. So the Civic Media program is all about producing media to bring social change. And it can be, as Renee was interested in graphic design, Charlotte in developing app, but it can be also filmmaking. Shelby is coming from photojournalism. We have people from documentary, podcasts. So whatever media you would like to make really a change. And our program is focusing on the co-creation. So you're not going to learn to be your own, one-person show filmmaker. You're going to learn to create together. And how does that work? To really listen to a community, work collaboratively. So next slide. The program itself is 3 semesters, 30 credits. You can start in the fall or in the spring. So in the app, you just identify when you want to start the program. It's modular in the sense that each course has its own skills that you're going to own at the end of it. but it's not connected necessarily to another course. So by the end, you have all those skills of community engagement, research, we're going to go over it, but it's modular. So it's depending on the semester you're taking it. We have online offering, hybrid, on ground. Obviously, most of the courses are online right now. We're focusing, as I said, on collaboration and civic engagement. And there is the last semester, you're doing a practicum, which is you're going and working with a community to co-create a media product for social change, but you also at the same time writing a thesis that is a program evaluation so that you can show that you know how to do research and evaluate programs. Next slide. The courses are divided into 4 areas. There is the 3 research classes about solution journalism, how to find solution as you do investigative reporting, participatory action research, how you do research with the community together, and data activism, how you take data and communicate it to a community in order to bring social change. There is the practice and production of 4 electives that you can choose out of different programs and department, like the strategic communication, but there's also from interaction design, there is also from the business and entrepreneurship, there is learning that pedagogy that Shelby is taking it right now, she can talk about it. So there's different classes, elective, depending on what you want to enhance your civic media skills. Theory, there's 2 classes, which is the introduction to civic media and the thesis that will use theory. And then the community engagement, the practicum, obviously, but also nonviolence communication and social change communication, which are workshop-based, where people from the area and even internationally are joining us as guest speakers and talking about their work and how to engage with the community. And there's a community project in those courses. Next slide. The faculty are either engaged journalism, journalists that are working in the community itself, media producers that are doing documentary and working on social issue or with communities on social issues, and engaged media scholar like myself that we're doing research with the community or about social justice and social change. Next slide. After graduation, there's different jobs and areas that you could, if you're interested in applying. One would be to be an artist, documentarist, working, again, to bring social change on social issues. Engage journalists to work in a community, to report and bring news. A social entrepreneur to create your own nonprofit or working in a nonprofit to bring social change and using media for that. Information designer, how to design it, that's for you, maybe Renee and Serene, who graduated in August, is also a designer, so you can talk about that when we'll be in the breakout room. How can you do design that actually make a change? Youth media educator, to work with youth, to teach them about media, and in that way to bring for social impact. And then digital strategist, which would be to work on social media, on digital platform, to really help connecting a community with different initiatives or initiatives with members of the community. So those are the options after graduation. There's many more, but that's really the concentration and how we're training you in these 3 semesters to get there. So that's the civic media. And now we're going to move to the strategic communication.
Hey, you guys, it's good to see you all. So hi. So the strategic communication degree is launching this fall. It is also like civic media, a 30 credit hour MA. It also, like civic media, will be a combination of hybrid, online, and in person, hopefully, assuming everything is under control with COVID. Another thing that might be important to you, particularly some of you that are already working full-time, there will be full-time or part-time option. It sounds like it might tie nicely to some of the things that some of you are doing. Emily, you know, particularly with the copywriting and that kind of background, and what you're doing with marketing, Carlos, and where I don't know exactly where you're heading yet. Anna coming out of Minnesota, go Gophers, but it will help you prepare for management level positions, leading the creative team in terms of not actually being the creative director, something that we understand, Emily, you and I, but leading the overall team in terms of strategic messaging, where should we put it, what kinds of things should be said, the frameworks and things like that, and of course, communication directing. The other thing that I think is important for both of these majors, and honestly, all the graduate programs at Columbia, is we have a very particular lens. It is a creative, supportive environment where I think it feels a little different than a lot of other programs. Next slide. So who is this for? I think it's honestly sounds like it could be an interesting opportunity for many of you here. So pivoters, so people are looking for aligned skills. So maybe the copywriter looking for aligned strategic leadership skills and management. And other people are looking to upskill, like maybe taking your marketing chops and your skills you already have, building on best practices today, particularly with the 24/7 digital world we live in. I think we all have to be constantly refining and updating and upgrading. So taking a look at everything we know already and what's new and emerging on the landscape. Next slide. The curriculum kind of gives you an array of skill sets. So we're covering a little bit of the waterfront to prepare you to be able to lead a strategic communication for a variety of situations. So there's an introductory kind of course. We cover communication research. It will not just be your standard survey and focus groups or interviews. We'll do some other interesting techniques, obviously using digital platforms, as well as doing things like maybe projective techniques to try to get people who aren't as creative and articulate as yourselves to say what they really think and get underneath the difference between what I say and what I do. We also have a class in organizational communication. I think today, now more than ever, particularly with the remote, and it looks like remote may be here to stay in teams that work across countries, but organizational communication, not only in terms of managing a team face-to-face and remotely, but also managing up and managing, yeah, Renee, I'm with you, managing down and sideways, right? So, you know, and it becomes more complex the bigger the world, the smaller the world it gets. Digital content and analytics for the reasons I just said. Communication planning is really about strategic frameworks, and whether it's a brand or an association or a nonprofit or a startup or something in between, there needs to be an overarching plan, an overarching vision of the brand, the voice, the frameworks, how, you know, what we do and how we do it and those kinds of things. We have, in particular, because we are in Chicago, and I don't know if your plans will make it so that you might want to stay here or not, but you should certainly take advantage of it while you are here. We're the third largest media market in the country, so guess what? There are a lot of consultancies here, and a lot of them are tied to media, advertising, public relations, promotions, digital strategy, and things like that. So we have a particular course concentrated on advertising seminar and another one on public relations seminar. And we'll cover everything from there, from all the different platforms to experiential, to activations, to corporate communications, to internal communications, to crisis management, and all kinds of things like that. Because we're in Chicago too, we're also home to many, many, many Fortune 100s and Fortune 500 companies. Brand management is a pathway that is possible out of this. So we'll take some time to look at that and what are some of the issues. And also the other reason for looking is that more and more firms are taking marketing and advertising and PR. And hey, we'll see there's an example of that. Some of it is being done in-house. So that's interesting to think about. And not necessarily the last class, but towards the very end, depending on, you know, whether you're full or part-time, is the StratCom Lab, which is our shorthand way of talking about. It is a culminating project, so more of a project than a thesis, where you will work with industry professionals. Depending on the students, we may partner with a nonprofit, a for-profit, an association, and we will work on a strategic communication issue and try to help them. It makes a great portfolio piece. Honestly, most of these classes will have portfolio pieces built in. For the work that we do in strategic communication, it is distinguishing to have a portfolio. It is expected, quite frankly, in many pathways. And all along the way, you will be developing bits and pieces that will make a beautiful portfolio, probably in addition to what you already have. We have 3 electives, and here are some of the ones we're offering: user experience, marketing strategy, data analytics for decision making. So it kind of depends on where you want to go, where you think you need a little more strength, and we kind of tailor that to you, and strategic leadership for entrepreneurs, amongst others. Next slide. Things we hope you will walk away with as goal of the program is obviously powerful messaging strategies and frameworks. It's probably the biggest thing we're worried about. Take wherever you're at in terms of strategic thinking and digital analysis skills, and probably upskill some of that, or at least refresh it, because the landscape is changing constantly. Who would have thought 2.5 years ago that TikTok would be what it is now? I hope, because of the school that we are, and honestly the kinds of people the faculty are, is that we'll leverage those creative passions within you, which might make it a little bit different than some other programs. Really, truly, the creative spark is what makes strong strategic communication leadership, seeing things differently, finding that nugget, finding the new idea, which leads to championing ideation and innovation. That is how businesses and corporations and associations and nonprofits and startups all move ahead. Along the way, we'll unearth what I call the dirty truth, have a book in the work about that very topic. So what do consumers really, really, really want? And might be different kinds of consumers depending on what you're talking about. Critically important right now is analyzing crisis situations and learning from past and what's going on right now. So you can help champion and firefight the things when they do happen, and maybe, hopefully see far enough out and have a big enough sense of the landscape to understand and hopefully maybe preempt some of that. And then of course, lead the team. Okay, next slide. The faculty for this program, we definitely have some PhDs in the program, and we're very happy to have them. We love the scholar expertise they bring, but even our PhDs are not your quote unquote standard ivory tower PhDs. Everyone is actively involved in working with outside communities and organizations. These are just some of the titles of the people who will be faculty in the program: Director of Corporate Communications, VP Account Management Strategy, Director of Creative Strategy, PR Director, VP Integrated Communication, Brand Manager, Crisis Communication Director, Founder, Interaction Design Firm, Owner, Marketing Consultancy, Design Strategist. So hopefully some of those are kind of places where you might see yourself going, or hopes that, things you want to do. And this is just a tiny sampling of some of the brands that are faculty who come from industries. Sometimes they work days and come overnights. So there are a few people that are full-time faculty, but a lot of them are working out in the industry. So whether it's working with YME or McDonald's or P&G or Walgreens or Nine West or Disney or Amazon or the National Alzheimer's Association, they bring a diversity of perspective and experiences and connections. Next slide. So when you're done, what to do? A pathway that certainly makes sense at a PR firm, an ad agency, a promotions firm, an in-house kind of situation, a media outlet, is an account executive position, a communications manager, a strategist or comm planner, a publicist, a PR specialist in all kinds of areas, content strategy, social media management, integrated communication management, and like I said, brand management. So those are some of the things we see you doing afterwards. And honestly, who knows, by the end of next year, maybe even more ways to go with that. I think that's it.
Sorry, I forgot I was muted, of course, but yeah, that is it. I will take it from here. So hopefully if these programs sound enticing to you, you might be wondering about funding your education and next steps. There are kind of 4 major buckets that we talk about when we look at funding. The first is scholarships. So Columbia has a variety of scholarships for both incoming and continuing students. The incoming student scholarships are all part of the admissions process. So that is to say, you don't have to research or separately apply for any of our incoming student scholarships that are internal to Columbia. Your application will be reviewed. If you are admitted and receive scholarship funding, you will be informed in your your admissions letter rather. We do have a scholarship finder located at colum.edu/scholarships. It kind of goes over what the incoming student scholarship offerings are, some of the continuing student scholarships, which you would have to apply for separately. And then we have some external scholarship resources that I always encourage folks to look into. If you don't have a full-time job currently, it is possible to work on campus. All graduate students can work on campus a maximum of 20 hours a week. There is one type of job that is an award that we do through the admissions process as well, called the assistantship. That is typically a position working for the department. So in this case, it would be the communication department. The role can range a bit. It can be more of a teaching assistant role, or if there's some need that the department has that kind of fits with your skill set, they might have you working on that instead, like research or marketing. But other on-campus positions will require just a kind of a regular job application through our portal called Handshake. If you are looking for work off campus, the student employment portal Handshake that I just referenced also lists jobs that are off campus as well as the on-campus ones. Employers often come to Columbia because they're looking for the type of student that Columbia normally has. And then your academic department, so communication, and our career center are good resources for internships and other opportunities as well. So you can always take advantage of them during your time here. Then lastly, our federal loans. We do encourage you to submit your FAFSA kind of early in the process. It doesn't have to be as early as your application, but just, you know, a couple weeks after, maybe once you submit. And then once you're admitted and you've submitted your FAFSA, we will send you an award letter that outlines your loan eligibility and then kind of help you through the process from there if you elect to take out loans. And then the next thing, of course, is the application. So what are the requirements? We have an application fee, but if that is posing an issue for me, of course, get in touch and we can discuss it. A resume, 2 letters of recommendation. This does not have, your letters do not have to be only from faculty from your undergrad. So if you've been in the workforce a while and you have a supervisor that you get along really well with, or even a colleague who can speak to your work ethic, they are great to have for letters of recommendation as well. Transcripts from your undergraduate university or colleges that you attended, a self-assessment essay, which I'll get into on the next slide, a portfolio, and the portfolio is optional for strategic communication, and then an interview. And if you're an international applicant, there are some additional requirements, including a proof of English proficiency and a transcript evaluation. I'm happy to talk about that further. We're also going to be hosting an information session in December specific for international students to sort of talk about the process of relocating to Chicago and the specific requirements for the application. So feel free to check out our events page to register for that if it's of interest to you. But overall for the application, you can review all of the requirements at that link. And just briefly to talk about civic media and strategic communication in terms of the essay here. I'm actually not going to read this out. I more so just wanted to point out to you that the essay and portfolio for both programs have some specific requirements. Overall, self-assessment essays are just really an opportunity for you to shine in your application. You're expressing why it is that you want to come to Columbia, why this program seems like a good fit for you in terms of your career, your background, and like what you're thinking about doing in the future. So it's really just an opportunity to, you know, really show your voice and who you are. So one of our big application tips just on the admission side is to, you know, put a lot of your energy toward that for sure. And then with the civic media MA, there is the portfolio requirements, which is 2 to 3 curated materials that can be media production and artwork, or more shows showing your leadership or community organizing side, depending on which background you're coming from. And then for strategic communication, the optional portfolio, you can submit writing samples and creative communication materials that you've developed either in undergrad or in your current position. And for all of these, there's a huge range of file types that we accept. So let's say, for instance, you produced a video and you're applying to civic media, you could upload like an MP4, and then you could also just upload something as simple as a Word doc. So the timeline here, if you want to begin or continue your application, the link is apply.colum.edu/apply. And then the priority deadline is March 15th of next year. A note on priority deadlines, that is just the deadline you need to apply by in order to be considered for scholarship funding. if you miss that deadline, you still might receive funding. It's just the chances go down precipitously. So I recommend getting it in by then. But we have a good amount of time still, so I'm sure it will be fine. And then we'll make the decisions about 6 to 8 weeks after the deadline, sometimes a little earlier. And then my team will be in touch with the admissions decisions once we have them. So I am actually going to stop the presentation now so we can turn our cameras back on, and Shelby and Serene can talk about their experience a bit. And also stopping the recording.